Madhya Lila, Chapter 8. All glories to Lord Gaurasundar, the dearmost of everyone. He is the most beloved of Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya Prabhu. All glories to him, for he is the life and soul of Sri Jagannath Pandit and Sri Gadadhar, and the most precious treasure of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, for he is the Lord and Master of Jagadish and Gopinath, and all glories to the associates of Lord Chaitanya. In this way, Lord Chaitanya performed wonderful pastimes in Navadvip with Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Advaita Acharya Prabhu and all the other Vaishnavas were always engaged in performing grand kirtan and ecstatic dancing, accompanied by the constant chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna. Lord Nityananda Prabhu remained in Srivas Pandit's house, manifesting the mood of a young boy. So much so that he would not even eat by himself and had to be fed by Mother Malini. Malini also felt like a mother towards Lord Nityananda. One day, Lord Chaitanya began to discuss topics of Krishna consciousness with Srivas Pandit. He wanted to test Srivas Pandit, so he said, "Why do you keep and maintain this avadhuta all the time in your house? You do not know anything about him, who he is, where he comes from, what is his family background. I warn you that you are being too lenient and too kind to him. If you want to maintain your family standing in society and reputation, then you should immediately turn this avadhuta out of your house." Srivas Pandit smiled and said, "O Lord, it is not proper for you to test me in this manner. I know that Lord Nityananda is your expansion in the category of Supreme Lord. There is no difference between you and Lord Nityananda. I am your servant, and anyone who serves you becomes my master. Even if Lord Nityananda was to be a drunkard and a meat-eater, and because of my association with him, if I was to lose my reputation, my wealth, and everything, still I would never think of anything else other than serving his and your lotus feet. This I tell you truly." When Lord Chaitanya heard Srivas Pandit speak in this manner, he stood up and roared loudly with great joy. He said, "What have I just heard from you, Srivas Pandit? You have so much love and faith for Nityananda Prabhu. Your Nityananda is my most confidential associate and very dear to me, and yet you know the truth about him. This has pleased me beyond anything, and I give this boon. If there ever comes a time that even Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, has to go around with a begging bowl, still your house will never know the chills of penury. Everyone in your house, including your pet dogs and cats, will find complete shelter in my devotional service. Therefore, I leave Lord Nityananda Prabhu in your care, so that you may look after him and serve him properly." The Lord left Nityananda Prabhu in the care of Srivas Pandit and went back home. Lord Nityananda spent his time roaming about Navadvip. Sometimes he went to the Ganga to take a swim and happily allowed the currents to carry him away. At other times he played with the young boys like a little child himself. He would visit the houses of Gangadas Pandit and Murari Gupta, and then run to Lord Chaitanya's house, where Mother Sachi was very affectionate to him. Lord Nityananda, in the mood of a young boy, would try to catch Mother Sachi's feet, and she always tried to escape him. One night, Mother Sachi had a dream, which she related to Lord Vishvambar in confidence. "Towards the last part of the night, in the dream, I saw you and Nityananda. You were two 5-year-old kids running about, playing and fighting. Both of you then entered the deity room, and again came out with the deity of Lord Balaram in your hand and the deity of Krishna in Nityananda's hand. And I saw that you began to fight with each other, the 4 of you. Lord Balaram and Krishna were angry and said to you, 'Hey, you cheaters and impostors, get out of here. This house, this room, all belongs to both of us, and everything else, like the sweets, the curd, the milk, are for us.' Nityananda replied, 'Those days of stealing butter and curd and eating them have gone. You are no more cowherd boys. Now you have become young Brahmins, so give up being so possessive about all these sweets, yogurt, and milk now. If you do not listen to our sweet persuasion, then we will do it with beating. Who is going to tolerate your plundering and mischief?' Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna replied, 'We will catch hold of you, tie up both you impostors, and leave you here. If by chance you go against the wishes of Krishna, no one will blame us for it.' Lord Nityananda Prabhu then replied, 'Who is afraid of your Krishna? My Lord and Master is Lord Vishvambar.' The four of them fought with each other in this manner, snatching the sweets and food from each other's hands and mouth and eating it. Nityananda called out to me, saying, "Mother, bring me my food. I am very hungry." Thereafter I woke up, but I do not understand anything of this, so I am telling you. Lord Vishvambar smiled, hearing Mother Sachi describe her dream to him, and spoke with tender words to her. "That was a nice dream you saw, Mother, and do not tell this to everyone. Our deities are really very potent, and your dream has increased and strengthened my devotion and faith in them." It is interesting that you dreamt about this, because I used to notice something strange which I have not revealed to you before, because I was feeling ashamed. I noticed that the foodstuff that your daughter-in-law cooked and offered to the lordships, Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna, would remain half-eaten after the offering was over. I was suspicious of my wife, but now it has all been cleared up. Vishnu Priya, Sri Lakshmi Devi, the Mother of the Universe, heard the details of Mother Sachi's dream from the inner quarters, and now she smiled at her husband's words. Lord Vishvambar said, "Mother, let me go and bring Nityananda here right away, and you can feed him." Sachi Mata was very pleased, and she quickly began making preparations for cooking. Lord Vishvambar went to Nityananda Prabhu and invited him to his house. "Today we are making a special offering to the deities, so please do not misbehave," Lord Vishvambar warned him. Nityananda Prabhu caught hold of his ears and said, "Vishnu, Vishnu, only mad people misbehave. You are thinking that I will misbehave because you think everyone is like yourself." In this manner they joked with each other, and talking about Krishna they came to Lord Vishvambar's house. They were given water to wash their feet, and then they sat down next to each other with Gadadhar Pandit and other friends. Sitting next to each other like that and eating made Nityananda Prabhu and Vishvambar look exactly like Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman sitting in their mother's house. The mood was the same, and their affection for each other was the same. They were the same persons. Mother Sachi was very happy and excited as she served the two of them with 3 full plates of prasadam. When she returned, she saw that they were 2 young boys of 5. One had a blackish complexion, and the other was very fair, and both looked extremely exquisite and beautiful. They were without any clothes and had 4 arms. One of them held the conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus. His breast was marked with the Shrivats. The glistening kosha jewel hung from his neck, and beautiful fish-shaped earrings dangled from his ears, while the other held a plow and the pestle. She also saw her daughter-in-law, Vishnu Priya, situated on the breast of one of the young children. And no sooner had she seen this wonderful sight, it vanished. Mother Sachi became still and mummified with ecstasy, and tears rolled down her eyes, drenching her clothes. All the foodstuff became scattered as Mother Sachi fell and then lay unconscious. Lord Vishvambar quickly got up and washed his hands and mouth and came to the rescue of his mother. He lifted her up and said, "Mother, mother, please get up. Get control of yourself. Quiet yourself down. Why did you suddenly fall to the ground?" Slowly, Mother Sachi regained her consciousness and quickly tied her loosened hair. Without saying a word, she went inside her room and began to weep. She was breathing great sighs and was trembling all over. She was overwhelmed with ecstatic love for God, and nothing else mattered to her. Meanwhile, Ishan, the servant, cleaned up the eating room and collected all the remnants of food that had been scattered on the floor. He then ate it. Ishan is truly very, very fortunate. Every day he performed such wonderful activities. He remained like a servant, so nobody knew that he was actually perceiving the highest transcendental truth. Lord Gaurachandra continued to perform his congregational chanting of the holy name with all his devotees and associates in Navadweep. The Lord's eternal associates, who had appeared in different parts of Bengal, gradually in small numbers began to come to Navadweep. They soon found out that the Supreme Lord had appeared, and they became ecstatic. Lord Vishvambar revealed himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead to all the Vaishnavas, and they became fearless and blissful. The Lord felt all his devotees and associates were as dear to him as his heart. Every one of them felt he was most prominent of the Lord's devotees and associates. That Supreme Personality was greatly searched after by the Vedic literature, was here mixing freely with his devotees and embracing them lovingly. The Lord always visited different devotees' houses, and there he would exhibit to different disciples his four-handed form. Sometimes he went to Gangadas Pandit's house, and sometimes to Murari Gupta's house, and at other times to Srivas Pandit's house. Lord Nityananda was his constant companion. The Lord could not bear to be separated from Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is always engrossed in a boyish mood, and Lord Chaitanya wholeheartedly participates with him. The different surrendered devotees saw Lord Chaitanya in different manifestations according to their faith: Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Vamana, Nrsimha, etc. On certain days the Lord wept, absorbed in the gopis' mood, oblivious of the passage of time. Yet on other days he sometimes felt like Uddhava or Akrura or Lord Balaram, demanding wine to be brought to him. Sometimes, overcome with feelings of Lord Brahma, he began chanting hymns, falling on the ground. Another time he felt like Prahlad Maharaj and offered prayers to the Supreme Lord. In this way, Lord Chaitanya floated on the waves of devotional ecstasy. Mother Sachi was very happy to see her son happy. Only one disturbing thought kept interrupting her joys: that her son may leave home. Mother Sachi said, "Dear son, go and take your bath in the Ganga." And the Lord replied, "Mother, please say Jai Krishna Ram." In every conversation with his mother, the Lord replied with just one word: Krishna. The Lord's transcendental moods are all inconceivable and cannot be ordinarily understood. Whatever he manifests is super excellent and unprecedented. One day, a roaming devotee of Lord Shiva came around singing about Lord Shiva and kept dancing round and round. When Lord Chaitanya heard Lord Shiva's glorification, he took the form of Lord Shiva, wearing his extraordinary matted hair, and jumped up on the singer's shoulders. Loudly he shouted from up there, "I am Shankara, Shankara." People saw him perched on the shoulder with matted locks piled up high, playing on a horn and small hand tabor, as he urged the singer to continue. The singer devotee of Lord Shiva received the full benefit of glorifying his Lord Shiva purely without offenses. Supreme Lord Gaurasundar sat on his shoulders. The Lord regained normalcy, and climbing down, he personally offered alms to the singer. The singer devotee left feeling extremely grateful and satisfied. The devotee servants of Lord Gauranga shouted Lord Hari's name in elation, feeling a surge of devotional ecstasy in the Lord's company. The Lord said, "You, my brothers, please hear the essential teachings of all scriptures. Why should we waste our nights in useless activities? Let us make a firm resolution from today to spend the nights engaged in the most auspicious activities, chanting the Lord's name. By performing congregational chanting of the holy name, all of us will drown in divine deluge, as if the flood of devotional ecstasy is gushing like Ganga Devi. Let the whole world be delivered by hearing the holy name, and in that way you will become everyone's spiritual life-giver and beloved treasure." The Lord's words breathed great joy to all the Vaishnavas' hearts. Lord Chaitanya had begun his kirtan pastimes. Every night the Lord met the devotees in Srivas Pandit's house and performed kirtan. Some days he would also meet in Chandrasekhar's. These kirtan meetings would be attended by so many devotees, the Lord's dear servants, that all their names cannot possibly be remembered. Lord Nityananda was there with Gadadhar Pandit, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, Vidyanidhi, Murari, Hiranya, Haridas Thakur, Gangadas, Banamali, Bijoy, Nandana, Jagadananda Pandit, Buddhimanta Khan, Narayan, Kashishwar, Vasudev, Ram, Garudai, Govinda, Govindaram, Gopinath, Jagadish, Shriman, Sridhar, Sadashiva, Vakreshwar, Srigarba, Suklambar, Brahmananda, Purushottama, Sanjaya, and others. The Lord was always surrounded only by such devotees who accompanied him in kirtan and dancing. The Lord's ecstatic thunderous roars and loud kirtan rented the very limits of the material world. These kirtans agitated the envious atheists. They clapped their thighs and jumped up, pouring out streams of profanity. All this loud howling and wild dancing after a good wine bout, as soon as it gets to be nighttime, is robbing us of our entire night's precious sleep. These impostors entice women to them with their hypnotic enchantments and enjoy them the whole night. These atheists are consumed in their own fire of hate, and the Lord, Sachinandana, dances in graceful ebullience. As soon as the kirtan begins, the Lord goes into trance and becomes oblivious of the phenomenal world. Dancing, he falls to the ground with such force that the earth quakes and cracks in places. The devotees look at him mummified in fear. As the Lord's tender body contacts the hard surface, Sachimata closes her eyes, silently praying to Lord Govinda, Krishna, for his protection. Sachimata knows that Nimai is in spiritual trance, yet due to her intense love for the Lord, she experienced great agony. She did not know what action to take, so she earnestly prayed to the Lord, "O Lord Krishna, please grant me this wish, that I may not know when Nimai hurls himself to the ground. Please grant me this mercy, Krishna. Although for Nimai there is no pain but actual blissfulness, I will be happy to remain unaware of all this." Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Lord, knew Sachimata's wishes, so accordingly he infused in her divine ecstasy. As long as Lord Chaitanya performed kirtan and dancing, Mother Sachi entered a state of spiritual exhilaration and became heedless of this material world. All the time now the Lord spent in kirtan and ecstatic dancing surrounded by his followers. Some days the devotees would collect in the Lord's house and begin loud sankirtan while the Lord immersed himself in dancing. At times the Lord exhibited his mood as the omnipotent supreme controller. Then at other times he wept in humility, saying, "I am your servant." Dear readers, hear these narrations about the Lord's transcendental ecstasies very attentively, for there is no one who can dance so gracefully as Lord Chaitanya in the entire creation. And likewise, the beautiful and exuberant singing of his associates that accompanies his dancing is also incomparable. On special religious days like Ekadasi, Dwadas, or Vishnu Tattva appearances, Lord Chaitanya assembled all the devotees in Srivas Pandit's house from early dawn and began mesmerizing everyone with jubilant dancing. In the house of that most fortunate soul, Srivas Pandit, a melodious tumult of the holy names of Govinda Gopal went up in the atmosphere. Different kirtan groups emerged from out of the assembled devotees. Srivas Pandit headed one group, Mukunda another, and Govinda yet another. They all sang and the Lord danced. Nityananda Prabhu, that great spiritual stalwart, circumambulated the dancing Lord, while Advaita Acharya Prabhu stealthily lifted the dust from the ground where the Lord danced and put it on his head. Gadadhar Pandit and others experienced divine exhilaration and looked at the Lord with tearful eyes. Here are some of the descriptions of how they performed kirtans to accompany the Lord's magnificent dancing. They sang often in Bhattigari Raga. The directions resounded with the singing of the holy name. Govinda and Mahaprabhu accompanied it, lost in his scintillating body movements. They sang Hari O Rama, Hari O Rama. Lord Chaitanya would begin to weep during kirtans. It continued minimum for an hour. His long tresses tossed about on the ground, and he made no attempt to tie them. Only hearts of stone can remain unmoved by the sight. The devotees fell swooning to the ground, trying to reach out to the Lord. And when he began laughing, he broke out in carefree, effervescent mirth, infecting everyone with ecstatic joy for hours. Lord Chaitanya, being surcharged with the mood of servitorship, became unaware of his own divinity. Jubilantly he repeated, "I am victorious, I am victorious," and all the devotees chorused the same. At intervals, the Lord sang out so loudly, it sounded as if the entire universe would split open. Sometimes he became heavier than our earth, impossible for anyone to hold him. And then again, he would lose so much weight in a moment that he was lighter than cotton wool, and being carried around the house jubilantly by devotees on their shoulders. The Lord frequently went into ecstatic trances on the least of provocation, putting the devotees in anxiety, and they chanted Hari loudly into his ears to awaken him. Then sometimes his entire body shivered uncontrolled, his teeth chattering like a little boy out on a winter morning. Next moment, he was drenched in cold sweat like Mother Ganga was flowing out of his pores. His body would suddenly become burning hot, drying up all the cooling sandalwood paste applied to his person. He released gigantic sighs, throwing asunder the devotees from his front, and then he rushed at the devotees to catch their feet, and all the Vaishnavas tried to escape the Lord. The Lord liked to sit and rest back against Lord Nityananda. Lifting his lotus feet, he looked, smiling at the devotees. The devotees immediately comprehended the impact of this pastime, and they ran to loot the priceless treasure of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. Advaita Acharya said, "O you thief, now we have crushed your pride." Lord Chaitanya blissfully rolled on the ground and allowed the devotees to glorify Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya danced vigorously, the earth quaked and the devotees looked around in apprehension. But when he danced with graceful postures, he looked like the divine Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. He roared sometimes with the roar of 10 million lions, but he carefully protected the devotees' eardrums. Often he would be seen by some moving on air a little above the ground, yet not everyone could. He stared at devotees with eyes turned bright red due to feelings of extreme ecstasy. They were shocked at first, but fled away laughing. Vishvambar became restless with ecstasy and danced, lost in himself. He caught someone's feet and sometimes even clambered on his head. He would drape around someone's neck and weep, and the next moment climbed onto his shoulders. Again, overcome by the youthful mood, he became restless and made sounds of musical instruments with his mouth like a playful lad. He would shake his foot and laugh continuously, and then get down and crawl on all fours, feeling like a baby. At times, Vishvambar entered into the mood of Shyamananda Sundar, Krishna, and stood for hours in the Trilinga position, the body bent in 3 places. He meditated for some time and then played the flute, melodiously, and he looked just like Krishna, the moon of Vrindavan. When he came out of this mood, he again felt like the Lord's servitor and wept. With utmost humility, he begged everyone, wanting to serve their feet. The Lord sometimes bent his body like a wheel, his feet touching the head, and remained like this for long hours. He expressed all his ecstatic moods in wondrous ways, dancing exquisitely, immersed in the bliss of chanting his own names. His body trembled as he frequently made roaring sounds, and sometimes fell crashing to the ground. His dancing, resplendent golden figure would suddenly appear multicolored. Then the devotees would see double images of him. The Supreme Lord Chaitanya exhibited such extraordinary displays of ecstatic emotion under the influence of his mood of a Vaishnava devotee. He often repeated unspeakable words. The Vaishnavas he respected as a Prabhu would be caught by their hair by the Lord, and then the Lord would call out, "This fellow is my servant." The Vaishnav whose feet he tried to catch previously in humility, the Lord would now stand on his head. The devotees all around were so captivated and moved by the Lord's ecstatic symptoms that they put their hands around each other's necks and cried. The entire group of assembled Vaishnavas looked so radiant, their bodies decorated with sandalwood tilak and tulsi mala, and blissfully tasted the nectar of chanting Lord Krishna's name. The sounds of mridangas, conch shells, and kartals mingled to a melodious uproar. As this auspicious sound of the holy name spread and filled the azure vaults, evil and misfortune disappeared in every direction. How extraordinary is that Supreme Master, that the entire universe becomes cleansed of sin simply by the dancing of his disciples. And the Master, Krishna himself, dances to the accompaniment of his own holy name. How can the Puranas ever explain this supernatural phenomena? Lord Chaitanya danced, surrounded by his devotees loudly chanting the auspicious name of Lord Hari. Lord Shiva becomes so spiritually surcharged with bliss at the sound of the Lord's name that once he begins to dance and taste the nectar, he loses track of his person and clothing. That very name of the Lord transformed Valmiki to an embodiment of knowledge and renunciation. The same holy name offered Ajamil supreme liberation. Hearing his name, the shackles of material existence are broken. That self-same Supreme Lord has now appeared in Kali Yuga and is dancing to his own name. Narada Muni and Sukadev Goswami roam the universe singing his name, and Anantashesh Prabhu, with 1,000 mouths, glorifies his name. Whose name is the best means for atonement from my sin? That same Supreme Personality dances only to be seen by the most fortunate souls. I am so fallen and wretched that I was not born then to see this marvelous festival of Sankirtan and dance. Srila Vyasadev's son, Shukadev Goswami, praised Kali Yuga in Srimad Bhagavatam because he knew the future advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That same Lord now danced, immersed within his joyful self, and chanting all with the rhythmic patting of his feet. The Vaijayanti garland around his neck swung wildly, echoing the Lord's ecstatic dancing mood. He tore the garland and threw the shreds at his devotees' feet. He gave up his joy rides on Garuda's shoulder, forgot his conch shell, disc, mace, lotus-holding form, forsook his bed of Anantashesh. In his pastimes as Gaurasundar, he rolled in the dust and wept, overcome with the ecstatic mood of servitorship to the Supreme Lord. Gone was his mood of Lord and Master and the pleasures of the Vaikuntha planets. The ecstasy of being the Lord's servant overshadowed all other pleasures. The Lord is the supreme subject of all pleasures, yet disregarding the pleasure of Lakshmi Devi's company and exquisite face, he prefers to heave his hands and face a kirtan and drown in an ocean of acute separation from his beloved Krishna. The Supreme Lord, who is diligently served by elevated personalities like Lord Shiva and Narada Muni. That same Lord Gauranga has neglected his supreme absolute lordship, and with utmost humility, taking straw in his mouth, is begging and praying for devotional service. And if any wretched soul, in spite of the Lord's unprecedented novel example, disregards devotional service to the Supreme Lord, he is unfortunate enough to throw away the nectar and drink poison. There are again those who read and propagate the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and establish themselves as Lord and Master, without appreciating the extraordinary beauty of devotional service. All their activities are lowly and futile. They do not know the essential truth in the Vedas, yet they deliver dissertations on the scriptures to equally agnostic audiences. They are truly like the mules carrying the burdensome load of useless learning. The Vedas and Bhagavatam have unequivocally elucidated the elevated position of devotional servitorship to the Supreme. Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and others carefully cultivate this priceless process. Those who do not have complete faith in Lord Chaitanya's words are most unfortunate and are forever disassociated from his mercy. It was so divinely enchanting to see Lord Gaurasundar dance, surrounded by all his associates singing sweet melodious kirtans. Advaita Acharya, unable to control his ecstasy, often went into a trance and covered his entire body with straw, and holding one straw in his mouth in humility with some on his head, he danced vigorously, his eyebrows drawn close together. The assembled devotees were astounded by Advaita Acharya's ecstatic symptoms, while Nityananda Prabhu and Gadadhar Pandit were shaking with laughter. Lord Gaurasundar, the dear life of every soul, continued his sublime dance, frequently overcome by endless ecstatic emotions. Lord Gaurasundar exhibited such extraordinary symptoms of ecstasy that they are not even mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, nor has anyone heard about them from anywhere else. Sometimes his body became stiff like a statue, and no one could possibly move or bend him. Then again, his body became soft as cream, as if he had no bones in the body. Other times he looked at least twice his normal size. And again, sometimes he became thinner and smaller than usual. Sometimes he moved drowsily about like a drunkard, suddenly breaking out into a joyous, boisterous laughter, shaking his entire frame. Seeing the assembled Vaishnavas surrounding him, Lord Gaurasundar, enraptured in spiritual emotions, started calling each with their previous names. He looked around and shouted out to the individual names like Haladhar, Shiva, Shuka, Narada, Prahlad, Ram, Aja, Uddhava. In this way, the Lord skillfully revealed different devotees' previous identities in Krishna Lila. All the devotees marveled, filling their eyes with the enchanting dance of Lord Gaurasundar in the mood of Lord Krishna. The crowd at Srivas Pandit's residence, drawn by the delightful kirtan, was overflowing and very anxious to see Sri Gaurasundar. Those who arrived early were in the house and could see everything. Others remained outside. The Lord instructed for the doors to be closed. The people of Madhya were impatient, creating a loud commotion to get inside. They cried out, "We want to see the kirtan. Open the doors immediately." The Vaishnavas inside were unaware of any happenings, their complete attention captivated by the kirtan. Amongst those who were not allowed inside were some atheistic and envious persons making various comments. They said, "They are a bunch of beggars, afraid and feeling ashamed they might be recognized by others, so they closed the doors." "You are right, it is only due to the pangs of hunger that they scream non-stop for hours. Actually, they closed the doors because they do not want us to catch them drinking wine all night. Nimai Pandit was good and normal. We do not know why God changed his mentality. I think this is a consequence of his past life. In fact, this is happening because of bad association. Ever since Nimai lost his father, he has no one to discipline him. Nimai has since long given up his studies. Grammar is such a subject. If you lose touch of it for even a month, you forget it. His mind is now idle. We know all their excuses. We know the real reason for their closed-door activities. In the night, they chant mystical incantations, casting spells on women and bring them here. Together, they eat and drink all sorts of things and decorate themselves with fragrant flowers and perfumes and engage in various illicit recreation. So they lock their doors to avoid public censure. Tomorrow, I shall definitely have them arrested and taken away, bound up like common criminals." All this howling and shouting, Hari, Hari, was never heard in these parts. Now this kirtan has stolen the sleep of common people. All material prosperity is now forever gone, and instead we will have famine. The rains will stop due to their reprobate activities, and no grains will grow, and we will all starve. But let us wait outside a few days, because this madness cannot go on for too long. We shall see what Srivas or Advaita or that Avadhut Nityananda does. In this manner, the godless persons raved and threatened, but the Vaishnavas were immersed in a joyous ocean of kirtan, and they did not pay attention to their words. Outside, the tirade continued. "It is not a Brahmin's duty to sing and dance. That is for the low-class men. Sad that an educated Brahmin should set such a bad example. Just looking at them, even an upright Brahmin loses all his good qualities. No one should as much see their dancing and kirtan even out of curiosity. Look what happened to Nimai. He was intelligent. Now he is mad, dancing and singing with them, and they are steadily increasing in number. What is their use of calling out to God without any self-realization? God resides within you. Why reject the wealth in your own house and search for it elsewhere in the forest?" Then someone quite unexpectedly said, "No use criticizing others. Better to just go home and mind our own business." Another voice supported him, saying, "We cannot get inside to see the kirtan due to our own misfortune from our previous life. How can we criticize those who are fortunate to be inside, participating in the kirtan? They are very pious." He belonged to their group, the atheist cried out and pressed aggressively towards him. "What is the great loss if we do not see their kirtan? They are simply a few hundred, prancing around screaming as if in war. Without practicing chanting, penances, or cultivating knowledge, they follow a concocted method of discipline and meditation. They collect foodstuffs like rice, bananas, milk, and curd, and mixing everything, they sit together and eat. This way they corrupt the caste system. People came to see the kirtan only to abuse. Just look at how madly they are acting. They indulged in such comments and left. Again, a fresh group of people gathered to continue the vilification. When two agnostics met, they engaged in ridiculing the Vaishnavas and rolling in laughter. When they met anyone who had never seen the kirtan, they forced him to go to Srivas's house, and only on repeated pleadings would they allow someone to get away. Someone said, "What a wonder, in spite of seeing all this, the people crazily follow Nimai Pandit. With all the hustle and bustle, Srivas Pandit's house sounds like he is celebrating Durga Puja. The only sound one hears is a great din. This certainly gives rise to all the ill rumors. Navadvip is crowded with thousands of erudite scholars, yet these charlatans have gained prominence here. We must free Navadvip from this Srivas. Tomorrow I will demolish his house and float his belongings down the Ganga. It is for the better of this town to be rid of this so-called Brahmin. Otherwise, when the Brahminical culture wanes by his bad example, the Muslims will take over. Such were the unending string of invectives against the Vaishnavas. Yet some atheists were somehow very fortunate. They were born in the same place as the Lord, and so they automatically saw and heard the Lord's dancing, kirtan, and other pastimes. The devotees of Lord Chaitanya were deaf to all such criticism, intoxicated by the sweet nectar of Krishna's name. Day and night they sang the different transcendental names of Krishna, Jai Krishna, Murari, Mukunda, Banamali, and day and night a tireless Lord Vishvambar sang and danced with his associates, whose transcendental bodies were naturally indefatigable. Immersed in the ecstasy of Nam Kirtan with Lord Chaitanya, millenniums passed by, but by human considerations they were but a few years for the devotees. Like in the rasa dance pastimes of Lord Krishna, the young damsels, the Braja Gopis, spent millenniums with Krishna dancing with him, but to him it seemed a mere flitting moment, come to an end only too early. Krishna's pastimes are all inconceivable, and the associates of Lord Chaitanya, knowing this, had similar experiences of time like the Braja Gopis. One night, an hour before dawn, Lord Chaitanya suddenly stopped dancing and climbed up on the altar, and lifting up on his lap the Shalagram Shilas that were in Lord Vishnu's seat, he sat down in it. The seat crackled and protested loudly under his weight. Lord Nityananda quickly rushed to hold up the altar seat. Now, with Lord Anantashesh supporting the seat, it did not crumble, and Lord Gaurasundar sat comfortably in it and swayed gently. The Lord ordered for the kirtan to discontinue, and as quietness settled, he began to reveal the transcendental truth about himself with a booming, loud voice. In Kali Yuga I have appeared as Krishna. I am the Supreme Lord Narayan and the fortunate son of Devaki. I am the Lord and Master of the entire cosmic creation. It is I who is glorified in all your songs, for you are my servitors. I have appeared for the sake of all of you. I have accepted whatever foodstuffs you have offered. They were gifts meant for me. Srivas said, O Lord, everything is yours. Lord Chaitanya replied, I will eat everything. Advaita Acharya said, Lord, it is a great fortune for us. The devotees became busy bringing edibles for the Lord, and the Lord enjoyed it with relish. He ate milk, curd, and fresh butter, and kept repeating, What else do you have? Bring it. They brought him milk, sweets like sandesh, which he mixed with sugar. They brought rock candy with coconut milk and grains, bananas with flat rice and fried rice. He consumed large amounts and still said, Bring more. He ate in a matter of minutes more than what 200 men could eat. Still the Lord said, What else is there? Bring it, bring it. Oh, there is nothing here? The devotees were alarmed because their supplies were exhausted. They became amazed at the Lord in this mood and began to remember the Lord Almighty in fear. They prayed to the Lord with folded hands. O Lord, what do we know about your mystic potencies? How can we satisfy you with our small gifts? Someone who can hold the entire creation in his stomach. The Lord replied, My devotees' gifts are never small or insignificant to me. Quickly, bring what other things you have. They said, Please listen, dear Lord, the only thing left is some camphor rice. The Lord replied, Do not worry, bring me that. The devotees became jubilant and forgot their fears. Each one hurried to bring as much rice as they could, and the Lord received it with open, outstretched palms. The Lord then made large eyes, and rolling them, he began calling out loud, Nara, Nara, Nara. The dumbstruck devotees sat around with terror in their hearts. They saw the Lord as a terrible master come to give out punishments. No one could approach him. Lord Nityananda stood behind Mahaprabhu, holding an umbrella over him, and Advaita Acharya stood before the Lord with folded hands, offering him prayers. All the devotees hung their heads in consternation and remembered the shelter of Lord Chaitanya's feet. Whosoever relishes these narrations of the Lord's mystic opulence will certainly be able to see the beatific face of the Lord. and in whatever stage of spiritual realization one is situated, he will perceive to that extent only such esoteric revealment. Anything more is impossible without the Lord's sanction. Looking at Adwaita's face, the Lord said, "As for a boon, I have incarnated here only because of you." The Lord looked at all the devotees one by one and laughing said, "Ask for what you want." The Lord manifested his divine awesome potency in this way, sweeping away the devotees in waves of ecstasy. The Lord's inconceivable pastimes are impossible to comprehend. In a matter of moments, the Lord changes from an exacting autocrat to a devotee swooning in devotional ecstasy. On regaining consciousness, the Lord wept, continuously manifesting the mood of servitorship. He went around putting his arms around the Vaishnavas' necks and wept, calling them brother, friend. An ordinary person could never see such activities. Only by the arrangement of the Lord's Maya potency were the Lord's servitors eligible to perceive the truth about the Lord's supramundane situation. The devotees were joyous and laughing at the Lord's wonderful character, and they said, "The Supreme Lord Narayan has advented." He again fell down unconscious with overwhelming bliss and lay on the ground as if dead. The devotees began to lament bitterly. They thought, "My beloved Lord has left me behind and left this world. Why is he so cruel to me? I will also leave my body immediately." The all-knowing Lord again woke up, feeling the thoughts of his devotees, and started a loud kirtan. The devotees were suddenly stirred up and in extreme exhilaration lost balance. Navadweep devotees thus relish such wonderful loving pastimes with the Lord of Vaikuntha. Whoever hears these transcendental pastimes of the Lord, his mind will always dwell in the association of devotees and in the Supreme Lord Gaurasundar himself. Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are my life and soul. I, Vrindavan Das, humbly offer this song at their lotus feet.